What's the craziest crime you or somebody in your family has committed? U/Southpaw7 writer responded. Last year my psychotic mother burned down my childhood home, that her, my dad, my niece, my sibling, and sibling's partner lived in, because she believed my dad was cheating on her, despite no evidence, and this was not the first time she accused my dad of cheating with no evidence. Effectively, she destroyed everything we had built and kept in that home, along with my dad's dog and my sister's cat. Cat was burned up, so never found, but the dog died of asphyxiation in my niece's room under her bed. Then after the fire, in what I can only construe as an act of desperation, she went to my bank and stole all of the money out of my accounts because she was secondary on the accounts. I was working on changing banks, but my new bank had yet to finalize the creation of my new account. Moral of the story is take your parents off your bank accounts when you turn 18. She's now serving time in a county jail for the arson because she took a plea deal and got a reduced sentence, which I still believe was utter crap. She played the poor old lady act to the judge and he took pity on her that she did not deserve. This is the woman who eviscerated my self-esteem and made my life hell ever since I was born. She was toxic and abusive, never told me the truth about anything, and is a greedy, manipulative person. I feel no shame in saying that I do not care about her. She's lost any right to my love and respect. U/Dignan's 30-year plan responded. Twin brothers boosted a car and robbed the 711 like half a mile from house. Ditched car 10 houses from theirs. How were they caught? Officers respond to alarm triggered by clerk. Officer. Got an alarm here, what happened? Clerk. Tim and Tom came in and robbed the store. Officer. How do you know it was these guys? Clerk. They are 6 feet 4 inches twins who come in every day. I know their shape and voice. The car 911 operator. 911, what is your emergency? Neighbor. Was watching TV and 2 guys park a car in front of my house. One guy got out with like a Windex bottle and cleaned all the door handles and door areas. Then opened door and the other guy took the stuff and cleaned the inside areas. Then they ran off up the street. Dispatch. Can you describe the 2 individuals? Neighbor. Well, it was Tim and Tom, the twins that live up the street from me. They're like 6 feet 4 inches and they are twins. U/Ashes Snow responded. My mom set a dude on fire. When I was young I had a babysitter, named Chris. He was the uncle of my 2 best friends, sisters Abby and Becca. He was also abusive. He liked to do things to me in front of them. Make them listen to my cry and scream. Nothing physical, I should mention. More, psychological. Anyway, I didn't tell anyone about it. And in fact only learned this story about 2 years ago. But it turns out that my best friends did. They told my mom and she was pissed. Soon after that there's a party at my friend's parents' house. My mom goes and sees Chris. He's all nice to her. They're outside in the backyard. She starts kinda joking around. Roughhousing. Messing with him. She grabs some lighter fluid and sprays some on him. Ha ha ha, just a joke. She lights a match. Ha. You wouldn't do it, would you? And she lights him on fire. According to my mom, he was put out quickly so he was fine. But she told him that's what it's like when you're scared for your life. And then she left. Apparently he flew back to Florida the next day. U/Flygirl083 responded. My grandfather's father was a mean, abusive, hateful drunk, who would come home from working in the mines long enough to terrorize his children and impregnate his wife and then leave again for mine work. He tried to set the house on fire, with wife and kids, 13 of them, inside, twice. One day my grandfather and a couple of his siblings were picking berries across the road from the house and his drunk father started taking pot shots at them with a rifle. My grandpa, one brother, and his oldest sister took off running for the house with the agreement that the first one there would kill him, their father. My grandpa's sister got there first and shot him to death. She was never charged with a crime, due to her age and the fact that everyone knew my great-grandfather was a mean son of a bitch and had it coming. ETA, wow, my most upvoted comment is about my family's fucked up history lol. Edit number 2, thank you all so much for the awards. Also, RIP inbox lol. Edit number 3, since some of y'all think it's fake, here's some proof. U/Danzarak responded. Back in the mid-90s, I lived in a shared rented house in the north of England with 4 ex-schoolmates. It was a bit of a drugs den, right next to the bus station, so everyone called in on their way into town for a cup of tea and a spliff, and same again on the way out. So it was always rammed, lots of acid and mushrooms on weekends, people crashing everywhere. One morning, me and my girlfriend were woken up by the police coming into my bedroom room, illegally. They claimed to have pushed the door and it swung open, and telling us all to gather in the front room. I had my skinning up box next to the bed. I assumed the police were there for drugs or course, so I hid my stash before I came down. So we're all sat in the lounge hungover and the policeman says, "So, who knows about the credit card?" We all just went, "Wah," because it wasn't what we were expecting, except one of my housemates stands up and says, "No one else knows anything, it's me," and goes off with the police. Turns out, a bank card had been delivered for a previous tenant, and then shortly after a new PIN. My housemate had taken it, and emptied the account of a load of cash. And what had he bought with his stolen cash? A gecko, in a big fancy glass cabinet. He was struggling to pay his rent, we all were, but here was this massive green mother sat sunning itself in our front room. All 6 or so of us just sat and looked at it as he was taken away. You/deleted responded. Mine is incredibly stupid, but looking back reminds me of how actually crazy the whole situation was. When I was in the 6th grade, my parents, mom plus stepdad, got married and moved me to this very small, very religious, very tight-knit community. My life changed immeasurably that year, and I absolutely hated my new school and all the people in it. So our morning routine was parents get up at 6, wake me at 6:30, both parents are out the door by 6:45 and I have to catch my bus at 7:15. Well, 11-year-old me figured out that I could just not catch my bus, and my parents, both working demanding jobs, would not be home until 3 hours after I usually got home, so they'd never know. The first day I skipped school was easy. By week 2 I realized I'd have to go back for exams, especially the state exam, which determined if you got to move to the next grade, and obviously the school would want to know why I was absent. So I devised a plan, wherein I called the school pretending to be my mother and told them my poor daughter had mono and would be in and out as she felt better, and I asked them to please change my contact number to my home phone, that way I could intercept any phone calls. And thus began the 6 weeks where I went to school only ever on days that I had exams. Unbeknownst to me, one of my teachers wrote a note with my report card, that were mailed to our house, that said she was so proud of me for keeping up with my schoolwork despite being sick and out of class so often. I was in 3rd period when I got called to the office to find my vice principal, 2 very, very angry parents, and a truancy officer waiting for me. I had to go to court because I had missed so many days and was given community service as punishment. I was also sent to in-school suspension, ISS, for the remainder of the year. It's still on my criminal record, although since I was underage when it occurred the details are sealed, but I was 100% convicted of truancy. You/CST_rocks responded. My dad got into a bar fight around 21 or so, hit a guy so hard he killed him. He went to prison, of course, but while working along the road he stopped another prisoner that attacked a guard and tried to escape. My dad was released for that. He never drank after that, and if he got angry he just walked out of the house to cool off. He turned 81 a week ago, and he's the nicest, easiest going guy you would ever meet. He never judges anyone. He once said to me, "We all make mistakes." Asterisk for the record, I only heard the story about 10 years ago from my brother. He told him during a road trip. He lived in a small town, and I have no idea what prison he was at or the official reason he was released, but considering it was probably around 61/62, they probably used whatever reason they wanted to for his release. Asterisk edit, thanks for the award, wasn't necessary but thanks. You/sweetleafsc responded. My husband's dad killed the guy who his then girlfriend was cheating on him with. He was supposed to serve a life term but got out because of a clerical error. He did manual labor on a local park, and apparently the guys who helped were supposed to get a reduced sentence. However, he was not supposed to. I think my husband talked about it once. Also, my husband's half-brother, same murderous dad, killed his business partner. He would have gotten away with it, however. He moved the body when he found out construction was going to start in that spot. And what were they going to build there? A prison. He's currently serving a life sentence. My husband has never met his half-brother. He also has 2 half-sisters from the same dad who are law-abiding citizens. You/deleted responded. It's not a bad crime or anything, but it was illegal at the time. So, in Germany, up until a few years ago, we still had a general draft for the army. And a generation ago it was very hard to get out of it. My uncle was a hardcore pacifist, so going to the army wasn't an option for him. But being accepted as a conscientious objector at that time basically required you to be a devout Christian and use the Bible as an argument for why you couldn't kill another human. And my uncle was also atheist. He couldn't realistically object, didn't want to go to the army, and didn't want to go to jail, too. So he waited. He got sent his draft notice, passed the physical, and got a letter telling him to report to X company under Sergeant Y. He wrote back a reply, on rose-colored paper, scented with perfume, about how much he was looking forward to serving under the strong leadership of Y, promising to obey every one of his orders, and that he can't wait to experience life in the barracks together with so many strong and muscular men. He was declared unfit for service shortly after. You/mashed_potato responded. I was in middle school, 13 to 14, and my buddy and I snuck out of the house to go cause mischief. We did this almost every weekend, and we really only snuck out just because we knew we shouldn't be. The worst we ever did was TP our other friend. Other than that, we just rode our bikes around. Except one time we met up with a couple girls that my friend knew. We were going around our town and tipped a porta potty, put someone's patio furniture in their tree, stupid shit like that. My buddy thought he could show off his muscles by pulling a mailbox out of the ground. I said he couldn't, and I was right. To one-up him, I pulled the mailbox right out of the ground, and we laughed like little girls as I set it on the homeowner front step. Not 10 minutes later, cops rolled around with their spotlight on. Found us, not the mailbox, and brought us home. My dad made me go back to the house, and the mailbox was in the ground already. He made me knock and apologize to the homeowner, who happened to be a 90-year-old woman with cancer. That straightened me up real quick, and I never did stuff like that again. Only later did I find out what I did was a felony, and I didn't feel like living that life anymore. U/Propeller Goblin responded. My dad, when he was much younger and infinitely more stupid, regularly used to drink drive with his friends. It was the early 70s, and no one really cared. To hear him speak about it now, he can't believe how stupid he was. One night, he and his friend were out drinking. They heard there was a party going on at a pub across town and decided to head over. On the way, they go past a large club with a queue of people waiting to go in. My dad decides to show off a bit and pull a skid. He miscalculated, hit a curb and flipped the car, sliding down the road on his roof. The car stops, they get out and leg it, to the cheers of the people in the queue. They get the bus back home and immediately call the police to report the car as stolen. The police knew what had happened, but couldn't prove anything. U/Fedge responded. My uncle was a small drug lord in Northern California in the 90s. He had a compound out in Gold Country, had to drive through 3 gates with guards to get to his house. I never questioned it as a kid, just enjoyed heading up so I could fish in the stocked bass pond, which also had snapping turtles, as a line of defense. He'd take me out shopping at the mall with a film canister full of coke that he'd take hits off of occasionally, shadowed by some bodyguards. One time we were out for a ride in his Corvette going well over 100 and got tagged by highway patrol. He talked his way out of the ticket, told the officer he was showing off for his nephew and got carried away. The officer thought it was hilarious, and told me it was lucky since he had a ton of illegal guns and drugs in the trunk and would have made a run for it. He got arrested when I was 15. It was a full-blown, feds descended upon the compound in helicopters and swung through the windows with flashbangs. The whole 9. He was arrested, and since if he snitched on anyone above him he was, very bluntly, a dead man, he took the rap, was extradited to Lee in VA to serve a bit over 10 years. All he asked for while he was there was protein powder. He got prison ripped, and apparently beat someone near to death with a sock full of quarters for cutting in front of him at the payphone. At some point in my life, all 4 of my uncles on both sides, plus my dad, have spent time in prison for drug-related offenses, but this particular uncle takes the cake. U/Affectionate Edge 3068 responded. There is a family legend about some great uncles of mine stealing their dad's corpse from the funeral home. They went out to the woods with it and got drunk, then returned the body the next morning. Edited to add, so I talked to my mom and I missed or misremembered some wonderful details. They broke into the funeral home by backing Dad's work truck through a wall. Dad was a professional burglar who would have appreciated the irony of a thief's corpse being stolen, thought it was hilarious, and been proud his sons pulled the stunt off. They played a game of poker with Dad's body. And at some point they got caught because they attended the funeral the next day in handcuffs. My mom said that the father was apparently the one person in our family who never drank, so they weren't going out to get drunk with Dad one last time. The sons likely had a beer though. U/Shitty Shop Job responded. A male relative of mine skydived off the World Trade Center back in the 1980s. He wore rubber gloves to climb the electric fence and had his parachute hidden under a trench coat in a shopping bag. He had a getaway car waiting to him at the bottom, driven by his then-wife friend. His then-wife took the photos. He got caught 2 days later, where he had to give the city an apology and paid a small fine, no jail time. I digitally restored the photos of his jump and the newspaper articles a few years ago. He is a testament to crazy uncles everywhere. And to those who are going to correct me and say it was base jumping, asked him about this years ago. He said, at the time, the term base jumping hadn't been created yet. It was a skydive when he made it, and it will remain a skydive in his memory. Edit, proof. There are others of his chute opening, but LD have to dig for those. Also, article. Edit, okay, so some people are calling the photo fake. Please remember this was a picture taken from almost 2,000 feet away, using a 35mm film, on a 1980s non-professional camera. And this wasn't the negative. This was a shitty faded 8x10 that I scanned in the late 90s, digitizing it and doing my best to restore it. I will post more pics and the old article he kept when I find them. More photos. 1 and 2 you can see the original pic I posted at the top of number 1. Last edit, yes, the parachute was in a bag and his wife was the photographer, not the driver. I haven't heard this story in over 20 years. I misremembered a few of the details.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video you might enjoy the rest of my content, check it out.